wondering when I would come in here to find you sitting in that chair.
Wasn't easy tracking you down, Decker.
Wasn't supposed to be.
I know you've retired, but...
That's all behind me now, General. I'm not the man you knew during the Cold War.
I understand. We're now facing a threat unlike any we've ever faced before. And a man with your expertise...
I made a vow never to kill another human being. Sorry, General. Gonna have to find someone else.
Oh. No, we weren't thinking you'd do it. We were just hoping you could recommend someone for the job.
I guess I could come out of retirement.
No. No need. Just a recommendation will do.
All right. I'll do it.
Hey Exiles, Chronic Painless here with the official patch 3.25 update to my Blade Vortex League Starter build guide. I have to start this video off with a couple of disclaimers. First and foremost, the build is not quite what it used to be when I first started making these guides. There's been a bit of a death by 1,000 cuts, lots of tiny little nerfs and a few compensatory buffs to make up for it. But overall, while I used to give it a blanket endorsement, guaranteed you're going to have fun if you follow this guide, I'd probably put it as more of a B tier league starter right now. So if you love BV, you're probably still going to have a good time. But if you're just learning to love it, this might not be the best league to try it out, as there are going to be, a few more pain points, a little more struggles, and it's definitely going to take a little bit more currency to get it really humming the way it used to in prior leagues. That being said, high budget versions should still have that same immense power level that they used to have. And speaking of high budget versions of the build, that's the other disclaimer that I need to make. The ones in the guide right now are not super fleshed out. That is because I suspect that the new runic weapon enchantments could be build defining in a lot of cases, and I definitely want to see the full gamut of what is available there, as well as get a sense of just how easily available they are. And so going to hold off on doing too much theory crafting for how to spend tons of currency just yet. With that out of the way, let's talk about some of the major changes that I've made to the guide since the last time I posted a video. By far the biggest change is I would now recommend going for evasion instead of armor. I experimented with evasion a lot during Necropolis League, was very impressed by the survivability that I felt like I gained from it, and because it's just so much easier to pick up evasion compared to armor, with the uniques, with where we are in the tree, it just really makes more sense to go for evasion as your primary source of tanking up when you reach that phase of the build. The next big shakeup is I would now highly recommend going for an Eldritch Battery loadout as you get to the later phases of the build. The big impetus for this was the removal of the mana regen from Alira. This may have seemed like a tiny difference, but that tiny bit of regen was actually pretty important threshold difference between enough mana to cast whenever you need and not quite enough. So I would definitely recommend trying to solve that in the easiest way possible, which is just going for Eldritch Battery. And I found in my testing with it last league that it felt really good to be able to reserve all of my mana because of all of the mana reservation efficiency you'll eventually have at the later stages of this build. That last 70 to 80 mana can actually go a long way towards enabling some more auras. The main reason not to go for Eldritch Battery in the past was inspiration support being so strong. However, I've fallen a bit out of love with inspiration support, as I found that keeping the charges up with spam casting is even harder without the mana regen from Alira, and so I definitely think it is time to move on from inspiration support, replace it with something more reliable like hypothermia, and go for Eldritch Battery instead. The next big change to the build is that I would no longer recommend going for an Arcanist brand setup to apply your Assassin's Mark, Exposure, Bone Chill, whatever. I got a bit baited by this from myself, doing lots of Sanctum and the Trial of the Ancestors League with great success with these brand setups. However, trying them out some more in practice really doesn't feel all that great in maps. The spamminess of the Assassin's Mark cast does become a problem even with Eldritch Battery, so I highly recommend just going for a self-cast Mark and relying on Bone Chill coming from just Frostblink, which is another big change. I don't think you really need Cold Snap to make up for not having the instant cast Vortex. It's quite easy to just throw Bone Chill on a Frostblink and keep the uptime on that pretty much 100%, especially as you start investing in more AoE and skill effect duration. The last thing I want to touch on are some other changes that I've made to the auras in the tanking up section of the guide. First, we're definitely going to want to make use of a Guardian Blessing setup, and I'm hoping that Dark Marionettes will be brought back in more or less the same form that they were in during Affliction League, and we'll be able to get that free aura for just the price of a couple of gem slots. I'm also definitely going to want to investigate the new Flesh and Stone gem and see how that feels, especially as we start scaling our AoE at even higher budget versions of the build. And I have a feeling that it could synergize very well with Purposeful Harbinger, since GGG has said that it won't be affected by aura effect. However, it is a buff applied to you by the aura, so that sounds like the kind of thing that could be affected by both Aura Mastery as well as Purposeful Harbinger. And if we can boost that less damage taken with that notable, then we can see quite a bit of benefit from this new gem. That's really all I wanted to touch on as far as the changes to the guide are concerned. Definitely give the notes another once over, even if you've played this build before, as there are a few little changes here and there. But I will end this video with a couple final thoughts. First, I know a lot of people are going to be wondering about the Warden as a possibility for Cole BV, and I think that it's definitely very interesting, certainly intriguing, you know, but how's it going to work as a league starter? I have no idea. Can't endorse it like that at all, but it does seem like something that could be fun to throw some currency at later on in the league. That being said, I have seen a lot of people getting excited about Hoarfrost. I think Hoarfrost might be a bit of a bait for Cole BV. It's really easy to get freeze duration already and get yourself to a point where you're freezing everything easily. And the minimum 2-second aspect of it really doesn't matter for BV. Our damage is very consistent. It's happening rapidly. So even that minimum freeze, if you're able to overcome that threshold, will be a permanent freeze with the way BV actually outputs its damage. So I'm not super excited about Hoarfrost. However, trading Ignite for Scorch alone, especially 2 Scorches, is certainly something that could be worth investigating. Next, I just want to talk briefly about Recombination being added back to the game. This is by far the most exciting part of the patch notes for me. I spent tons of time in Sentinel League crunching numbers, figuring out the optimal ways to go about various different recombinations, and have a lot of exciting stuff to share with respect to that. So stay tuned for some more videos coming up soon. Very excited to be recombining again in the Settlers of Kalguur. On the slightly more sour note, I will not be around for League Start weekend. I'll be out of town that Friday through Sunday. So if you were hoping to follow along with me during those first couple days of the league, I have to apologize in advance, but I will not be beginning my league until Sunday evening. That's all I've got for this video. I'll be back very soon with some more updates and definitely a lengthy, in-depth look at recombination. So in the meantime, try to stay painless.